Hello everyone, my name is Rasha
And I'm Nur Nadia.
and we would like to make a presentation about medieval era and the Canterbury Tales, the poet from Geoffrey Chaucer.
Okay, let's begin. Did you know that English wasn't always the English we know today? Well, it all happens in the Norman Conquest. Norman Conquest was an event that occurred in the 11th century or 1066 that brought a lot of changes to the England at the time. One of the major changes was the birth of Middle English, where French, Latin, and English mixed together until they became the English we know today. Yes, you heard that right. Those three languages did mix and eventually became the official language. The Norman conquest itself, it is an event where France invaded England led by William of the Normandy, who would become the new king of England after Edward and was known as William the Conqueror. How did it all start? It all happened after Edward the Confessor died without an heir. Who was Edward, by the way? Edward the Confessor was the King of England who ruled from 1042 until his death on January 5, 1066. He had no heir to inherit the throne until his death, which led to a struggle for the throne over who would become the next King of England. After the death of Edward the Confessor, this made a son of strong Anglo-Saxon noble family, Harold Godwinson, step forward to claim the throne. However, the Normans would not let that happen, and they planned an invasion of England led by William the Conqueror. In October 1066, the same year as the death of Edward the Confessor, William and his 5,000 Norman knights arrived near Hastings. By the time Harold's troops were too exhausted after the Battle of Stamford Bridge near York, which led to their defeat against the Normans in the Battle of Hastings. And William made his way to become the King of England. That is where he got his title, William the Conqueror. The impacts of French. There were many changes after the invasion, which also affected the culture of England. One of the most notable changes was the social status. The nobles and the government used French as their elite language, the church and education used Latin, and the commoners continued to use English as their daily language. All of these differences were mixed between Norman French, Latin, and the commoners' English. The commoners had to speak two of these languages to communicate with the upper class, and by the time Middle English was born. After the invention, the language and dialect also changed. The grammatical structure became simpler after the Norman conquest, and the complex structure of Old English also changed. This affected the spelling and pronunciation of Old English. Not only that, thousands of French words were also added to English, and some of them are still used today. Here are some vocabularies from Old English to the New English we know today. Some of them are from French. For example, in Old English, thought become people and nation. But there are also other examples like government, justice, court, beef, and many other else. This also affected the literature of English. Writers had to adapt to French and Latin and combine them with the native English in their literary work. Along with the cultural changes in England after the Norman conquest, there was also a major shift in genre from epic to romance. Here an example of the literary work from that era, Havelock the Dane. Havelock the Dane is a Middle English romance about a young prince who is betrayed and loses his kingdom. He grows up in a poverty without knowing his true identity, but later he discovers who he really is. With courage and loyalty, he eventually reclaims his rightful throne and restores justice to his hand. Besides Havelock the Dane, here are some other masterpieces of Middle Age literary works. We have The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, Conventia Amantis by John Gower, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight by Gawain, The Book of Margery Kempe by Kempe, and many other else. But among of those popular masterpieces, we are going to talk about The Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. Ryan, I'll leave it to you.
Hello everyone. Now we're gonna talk about the Canterbury Tales, and thank you for the idea and for giving me time to explain it. So, first, the author Geoffrey Chaucer, born about 1342 in the Fintry. He lived in London and in Kent. When he was alive, he was surviving. There are so many events that happened in that era, like such a Black Death, the French War, the Peasant Revolt, the lost uplands, challenge to Richard II, and Richard's deposition by Henry IV. His father and grandfather were merchants, but Geoffrey Chaucer really have opportunity to become a kingsman or a professional royal servant that really have a good position in that era. He was also a diplomat who traveled on the king's business. His name occurs 400 times in the records. He already make a lot of words, and one of the most popular is the Canterbury Tales. Geoffrey Chaucer is often regarded as a central figure in the Middle English literature. Besides, is comparable in influence to Shakespeare in early modern English literature. When he was alive, of course they have background why he have such a good poetry, because in the era the church in medieval England was the most powerful institution in medieval Europe. Corruption among church officials was widespread, and pilgrimage was a common religious practice. So it's like a activity when you want to go to like a sacred place. And Chaucer portrayed the condition of the church through his work, the Canterbury Tales. There's so many social structure in this England in medieval era. First is the church, and second class is nobility. The third class is a peasant. But there's another amazing middle class, like merchants, business owners, and financial professionals. But these new classes did not fit easily into the three estate structure. There's a Black Plague or Black Death that caused many deaths in that era by about 2/3 of population, creating a labor shortage that resulted in higher wages for skilled workers. Literary background. So in the era, most literature was written in Latin or French, as I explained it before. Chaucer likely shared some of his tales orally to his friends. So basically, Chaucer really have strong fans or strong followers. Chaucer make a significant change developing first Middle English by writing the Canterbury Tales. So this is a foundation of English literature or English language. Paper become widely available, so in the era, paper or literature more accessible. Women in the era really have interesting position because church teaching had powerful influence on attitudes toward women in the Middle Ages. For example, Virgin Mary was the image of female perfection, but Eve, who tempted Adam to eat the forbidden fruit in the Eden, brought sin into the world. So this is very contradictory of female figure that really influence how people look the woman in the era. Women were alternately placed on the pedestal like the Virgin, but blamed for the entire sinful state of the world like Eve. Story overview: Daughter, Geoffrey Chaucer, just written 1387 until 1400. This literature was epic poem, genre satire. Why? Because this is really portray of social structure or social situation in medieval era in England. Perspective and narrator. The Canterbury tales start with a first person point of view, the Chaucer the Pilgrim, but from perspective of the storyteller, the story are typically written in the third person, except when the narrator interrupts. Tense, the story told primarily in the past tense. About the title of Canterbury Tales, it's a group of pilgrims walked to the Canterbury Cathedral and were challenged to come up with a story during their journey. So basically, they have like a challenge from someone that they have to break a story when they come back. The Canterbury Tales is a narrative poem with a collection of stories in the Middle Ages. The stories are told by the members of the pilgrim traveling together to Canterbury. As pilgrim tells a different story, reflect their personality and background. Each person have at least two story or two tales. There's so many characters in this story. It consists 24 pilgrims representing the various segments of society in England during the Middle Ages. But we're gonna talk about like 6 characters that have key role in the story. We have like Chaucer is a pilgrim in the company and the narrator, and Harry Bailey, also called House, is the owner of the Tabard Inn and suggests a storytelling contest. And we have the Knight is a noble pilgrim recently back from the Crusaders. It's like a chivalrous and wise, courteous, heroic and polite, and no flaws. We have Miller is a rude fellow who will tell an insulting story about a carpenter, and very strong brawny man looking, and he took the host role to the tell rude story. We have a the Reeve, all frightening looking man, take care of people's stats, saw his temper when they feel insulted. We have by the wife of Bath. The wife of Bath is seamstress from the town of Bath who has strong opinions about marriage. Very strong figure woman in the story. When we have a pardoner, the pardoner sells indulgence for the church but make himself a tidy prophet as well. So only motive is profit, self-fake release and very dishonest man. The earlier or the first line of the Canterbury Tales, but I'm not gonna read the old English version, but a new version. When in April the sweet showers falls and pierce the drug of March to the root, then people long to go in pilgrimage. These beautiful opening lines of the Canterbury Tales give reader the setting of Fram's story. It's a spring, a time of fear when the people are going to pilgrim to Canterbury to seek to help of the martyr Saint Thomas Beck. It also introduces there's so many like beautiful symbolic meaning, and springtime and flowers. It's like give us the rabbit or the opening good, and we take Gilman's critical as of the Canterbury Tales. So Gilman explained that the general prologue follows the tradition of stage satire, a medieval genre that portrays and critiques different social classes. She argued that Chaucer's character function both as individual and as a representation of social roles, using irony to the question medieval morality rather than directly rejecting. So basically, Chaucer take this as a moral question rather than he like want to reject of the system in the medieval era. Conclusion is the Canterbury Tale is a reflective of medieval society, social values, and human behavior through culture, satire, literary, which give significant influence of English literature. I think that's all we can share to all of you. Um, Thank you for watching us. Hope you guys understand and thank you. Bye.
Thank you.